Welcome to a tale of passion, courage, and forbidden love. 12 warriors rode for love, but the Apache girl gave her heart to the cowboy. A story of two worlds colliding beneath the Arizona sun. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Where are you watching from? Let's get started. The Arizona Territory, 1875. A land of red dust, wide skies, and endless silence. The desert stretched for miles, painted in hues of rust and gold beneath a burning sun. Through that silent sea of heat rode 12 Apache warriors, their horses kicking up spirals of sand that shimmered like ghosts. They were called the Warriors of the Mesa, proud, fierce, and bound by blood and honor. Among them rode Taza, their leader, whose eyes burned with the weight of duty. And riding just behind him, wrapped in a cloak of soft deer hide, was his sister Naya. Naya was unlike any other among her people, wild as the wind, yet gentle as the dawn. Her hair, black as a raven's wing, danced against the desert air, and her spirit seemed to belong not to earth, but to the sky itself. The elders said she carried the whisper of the ancestors in her heart, and even Taza, who feared nothing, feared for her. The world was changing fast. The white settlers had come, bringing iron rails and rifles, breaking the sacred silence of the desert. Far to the west, a small town had risen from dust. Prescott Junction, a cluster of wooden buildings, a saloon, a church, and a general store. Cowboys, miners, and wanderers filled its streets, all chasing gold or redemption. Among them was a man named Jack Dalton, a quiet cowboy with a face carved by hardship and eyes that held a storm he never spoke of. He'd come from Texas with little more than a horse, a saddle, and a past he was trying to forget. The frontier had a way of testing every man's soul. One evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, Jack rode down to the river to water his horse. The world was still. Only the soft hum of cicadas and the murmur of the current broke the quiet. That was when he saw her. Across the riverbank, kneeling beside a wounded hawk, was Naya. Her hands moved with such tenderness that Jack forgot to breathe. The hawk's wing was broken, and she whispered something in Apache that carried across the water like a prayer. Jack didn't understand the words, but he understood the meaning. Mercy. Their eyes met. For a moment, time lost all meaning. The tension between their worlds, the weight of blood and history, hung unspoken between them. Naya's dark eyes held a fierce light, cautious yet curious, and Jack's gaze, though guarded, carried no hatred. He raised a hand slowly, not in threat, but greeting. She didn't return it, but she didn't turn away either. The desert wind stirred between them, carrying the first spark of something neither could name. Then, as suddenly as she appeared, Naya disappeared into the canyon's shadow, leaving Jack to wonder if he had imagined her. But the desert has a way of weaving destinies tighter than men expect. Over the following weeks, Jack found himself crossing paths with the Apache girl again. Once he saw her gathering wild herbs near the old cottonwood trees. Another time, she watched him from the ridge as he fixed a broken fence. They spoke little, a few gestures, a few words in broken English and Apache, but the silence between them became its own kind of language. Jack brought her a small pouch of medicine once, a gift for her sick brother. She accepted it without a word, her eyes soft with gratitude. For Naya, every meeting with the cowboy was a step into forbidden land. Her people had lost too much to the settlers, their rivers, their grazing grounds, their sons. But something about Jack unsettled her. He was not like the others, not cruel, not greedy. He spoke softly to his horse, moved with quiet respect, and when he looked at her, she didn't feel like prey or curiosity. She felt seen. Yet she knew the cost of such feelings. In her tribe, love across the border of blood was not only forbidden, it was dangerous. It wasn't long before Taza discovered the secret. One night, returning from a hunt, he saw his sister near the river, her shadow outlined by moonlight, and across from her, the silhouette of a white man. His fury erupted like thunder. He dragged Naya back to camp, his voice rising with rage. "He is not one of us," Taza spat. "He is the enemy." But Naya stood her ground, her chin lifted proudly. "He is not the enemy," she said softly. He listens. He understands. Her defiance cut him deeper than any blade. To love the enemy was to betray blood. The next day, Jack rode to the mesa, unaware that a storm was gathering. He carried a small gift, a carved wooden bird, something he'd made with his own hands. But before he could reach the river, he was surrounded by warriors, arrows aimed, eyes hard as stone. Taza rode forward, his face carved in anger. "You come where you don't belong," he said coldly. Jack didn't reach for his gun. "I came to bring peace," he answered quietly. Taza's reply was a glare of pure contempt. "Peace?" he scoffed. "Your people build their peace on our graves." Jack could have turned and ridden away. He could have chosen safety over heart, but he didn't. He looked straight into Taza's eyes and said, "I didn't come to take. I came to find something worth living for." The words fell into silence like stones into deep water. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Naya stepped between them, placing a trembling hand on her brother's chest. Her voice was barely a whisper, but it carried across the desert air. "Let him live," she said. "He means no harm." The warriors exchanged glances, uncertain. At last, Taza lowered his hand. Jack turned his horse and rode away, leaving behind the echo of unspoken words and a love that had barely begun. From the ridge, Naya watched him disappear into the setting sun, her heart caught between duty and desire. The desert seemed to mourn with her, the wind carrying whispers of fate. She knew she could never see him again, yet part of her knew she would. In the West, destiny often wore the face of danger, and love, the kind that defied all laws, was as fierce as the desert storm waiting on the horizon. The sun rose over the blood-red mesas, lighting the land that had known too much war. Smoke curled from the canyon far below, where soldiers had camped through the night. Naya stood on the ridge, her heart heavy with dread. The white man had come again, this time with more rifles, more hunger. The air was thick with the scent of iron and sorrow. Taza gathered his warriors, painting his face with ash and clay. His voice was steady, though his eyes betrayed the truth. The fight ahead was not for victory, but survival. Jack Dalton rode alone across the desert, his shoulder aching from a past wound, his mind restless. The war between settlers and the Apache had escalated beyond control. He had tried to warn the soldiers, but they saw all Apaches as the same, enemies to be crushed. And when he tried to warn Naya's tribe, he was met with spears and suspicion. Now he rode with one purpose, to find her before the bullets did. The wind carried distant echoes of drums and gunfire. He pressed his heels to his horse and rode harder, dust rising behind him like smoke. By the time Jack reached the canyon, chaos had taken hold. Soldiers moved through the ravine in tight formation, rifles flashing in the sun. Arrows flew from the cliffs above, whistling like spirits through the air. Horses screamed and men shouted. Jack dismounted, his heart pounding, and ran into the storm. He saw Taza, proud and defiant, leading the charge with his warriors. And there, near the canyon wall, Naya, kneeling beside a fallen horse, her hands red with blood. For one frozen moment, she looked up and saw him. Her eyes widened in disbelief. Then she called his name. Jack ran toward her as bullets tore through the air. One grazed his shoulder, spinning him around, but he didn't stop. A soldier raised his rifle at her. Jack fired first. The man fell, his weapon clattering to the stone. Naya cried out as the ground trembled beneath them, the sound of horses echoing off the canyon walls. "You shouldn't have come," she shouted. Jack grabbed her arm, pulling her behind a boulder. "Couldn't let you die," he said, breathless. "Love doesn't care about sides." His words hung between them as another volley of gunfire shattered the sky. The canyon was becoming a grave. Smoke and dust clouded the air, turning noon to twilight. Taza's warriors fought bravely, but the soldiers had too many guns. Jack pulled Naya through the chaos, searching for a way out. "There's a cave!" she yelled, pointing toward the north wall. They ran for it, dodging fire and debris. As they reached the entrance, Jack stumbled. A bullet had struck his side. He gritted his teeth, refusing to fall. Naya caught him, dragging him inside the cave's shadow. "Stay awake," she whispered fiercely. "You cannot die now." but his eyes were already dimming. Hours passed in darkness. Outside, the battle raged and then faded to silence. Naya tore strips from her dress to bind his wound. She pressed her hands against his chest, feeling the faint rhythm of his heart. "You saved me," she murmured. Jack opened his eyes weakly. "You're the reason I had to." He smiled faintly, the corner of his mouth trembling. "If I die here, at least it's near you." Naya shook her head, tears glinting in the firelight. "No," she said. "You will live. The spirits owe me that much." Her voice trembled, but her hands did not. When dawn finally broke, the desert was quiet again. Smoke drifted lazily from the valley below. Naya helped Jack to his feet, and they stepped out into the pale light. The world had changed. The soldiers were gone, leaving behind bodies and broken weapons. Taza was among them, fallen beside his horse, his face turned toward the rising sun. Naya knelt beside him, her heart shattering in silence. She brushed dust from his brow and whispered a prayer in Apache. Jack stood back, hat in hand, knowing words would only cheapen the moment. The desert wind carried her grief away. They buried Taza beneath the old juniper tree at the edge of the canyon, marking his grave with a circle of stones. Naya placed her brother's bow across it, a symbol of peace and remembrance. Jack stood beside her, his wound bound but his spirit heavy. "You can't stay," she said softly. "If my people find you, they'll kill you." Jack nodded, though his heart rebelled. "Then I'll ride away," he said, "but I'll never forget." For a long moment they stood together, hands intertwined, the rising sun casting their shadows across the desert floor. Two hearts, one goodbye. By midday, Jack rode eastward, his figure small against the endless plain. Naya watched from the mesa, her hair whipping in the wind. She knew this world would never allow their love, not in this lifetime. Yet somewhere deep inside, she believed the spirits would remember that love born in truth could never truly die. As his silhouette faded into the light, she pressed her hand to her heart and whispered his name to the wind. It carried far, beyond the mesas, beyond the reach of war, toward the open plains where the cowboy rode alone. Years passed. The railroads came, carving iron scars across the land. The Apache were forced onto reservations, and the old songs of the wind grew faint. But legends never die. In the towns that rose where the desert once breathed, travelers spoke of a story, of 12 warriors who rode for love and freedom, and of one Apache girl who gave her heart to a cowboy. They said that sometimes, at sunset, if you stand on the mesa and listen, you can still hear hoofbeats in the wind and the whisper of a love that defied the world. And so, under the endless Arizona sky, their story lived on, not in books or monuments, but in the breath of the land itself. For love, like the desert wind, cannot be caged or forgotten. It moves unseen, shaping the sands of time, carrying the memory of two souls who dared to dream beyond blood, beyond fear, beyond death. Somewhere out there, in the soft glow of the dying sun, a cowboy still rides toward the horizon, and a spirit watches from the cliffs, bound forever by a love that even time could not break.